Nice to have you sharing this time with us. Thank you for being here. Um, my name is Ruha Fafida. I am curatorial assistant for Pacific Art and have the privilege of working with the curatorial team to care for the arts practices, the artists, the taonga from across the region that find their home here in Mianjin, Brisbane. It is a privilege for me to be able to take this opportunity to also acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which the gallery stands and pay respects to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island leaders, past, present, and emerging, and really to take this time to remind us of their foundational contributions to art and culture in this space and the way that other artists from the wider Te Moana Nui a Kiwa, the Pacific, are able to come and be in conversation with that work and that knowledge. So we're here, and the welcomes that have really opened the space to us and these conversations, I know, I speak on behalf of all of us, so we feel very grateful to be able to do that here. It's my privilege to introduce you this morning to Mele Kahalepuna Chun from the island of Oahu in Hawaii. Mele is a third-generation kumu hulu, which means she's a practitioner but also a teacher of the sacred and distinctive practice of featherwork that has emerged from Hawaii in that space, a very special space. As I understand it, she made her first feather lei alongside her grandmother at the age of 5, but has been surrounded by the practice much earlier than that and has continued really with a sense of responsibility to make this a central part of her life and the way that she participates in the community. I'd like to also acknowledge that Mele has brought work, but she also completed work here. And she has traveled with her close collaborator, Leanne Davidson, Auntie Lee, who many of us know, and she's sitting at the back there, alongside Mele's husband, Stephen Chun, who's also there, and traveled to support her in this endeavor and to be here. And there are many familiar faces that have assisted with Mele's completion of the work that she's done here in the gallery of the last week. And so it's really nice to see the faces of those that have helped to care for her and build those friendships in this space. I will hand over to Mele. She would like to start in a particular way, and we'll let the conversation flow from there. Thank you again for being here with us.
Baunai kalakie oi ale la I wai lua ukia elai kalari ka papa awai o poi ki ala ia ela e no nalo kai pua kalau la mau ko pa e mai pa ai kle o he ole ka he mai e. Aloha mai kako. So wonderful to have all of you. Can we stand? I can't see your faces if I'm sitting. I appreciate all of you coming to be with us here today and to be a part of this wonderful opening day for Asia Pacific Triennial 11. And that's in English. But so what I just did is asking permission to be here. And it is something that I wanted to do from day one, and I kind of did it within myself. Because it's always proper, especially for the kupuna, for those whose this land belongs to, it's always proper to give respect and to ask permission to be in this place. And so I just felt it proper at this time to do so. But so again, my name is Mele Kahalepuna Chun, and it's such an honor and a privilege to be here and to be a part of such a wonderful, wonderful group of artists and people that have such aloha love inside of them through their na'au into their iwi. It's been a wonderful experience. But so to share a little bit about what I have brought here to to Australia. So it's as Ruha explained briefly. I was born into this. My mama and my tutu were before me in doing and perpetuating the art of hulu, which is a traditional art form that our kupuna brought with them to Hawaii when they migrated. It is a very special work. It is a work that was only done by men traditionally. It was not women's work. And that's primarily because of the fact that the birds, of course, that the feathers come from, either they came from the forests, which were higher in elevation, in an area which was known as Vau'akua, so it is a godly place. Or if they were not forest birds, other birds, seabirds and such, they fly at a high elevation. Again, in the Levelani, close to the Akua, so they were sacred. That's why only men were able to gather and to make feather articles. In today's time, it's primarily women that do the work, but I will say, and I've shared this before, that men actually do the better quality work, which bamboozles me all the time. Um, but it is true, very true. So, as a child, I learned from my tutu, and as time went on, as life went on, and as I grew, I learned a little more. I really, really was surprised to understand how much I learned just by being around them and listening and absorbing and not actually physically doing. So that was of great importance to me because, you know, after my mama passed away and it became my kuleana, it became my responsibility to continue this work, I was a little afraid because someone asked me to teach them something that I had never made before. And I thought, how can I teach this if I've never done it before? So I went and I gathered the materials that were needed because I knew what they were. And I sat and I started to make, and it all just flooded in. Everything that I remember my mama and my tutu teaching and talking about, it was there. I just needed to seek it. And it came, and it's been an incredible journey since then. But anyhow, so with the work that I've brought, it's various types of feather work. So most commonly, when people think about hulu feathers or traditional Hawaiian feathers, we think about lei. And lei, well, originally it's just vili. Vili is tying, yeah, hand tying. And but in today's time, we've taken the feathers because, of course, we're not allowed to use our native bird feathers because they're either extinct or they're highly endangered. But we're working on it. We actually have, I believe it's 3 species of our native Hawaiian birds that are now no longer endangered. Yeah, because people are finally getting it that we need to malama our aina. We need to take care of their home so that they can thrive. So maybe one day, maybe not in my generation, maybe not in my child's generation, but maybe in my mo'opuna's generation and those to come, one day we'll be able to utilize our manu again. But anyhow, so being that we're able to use other style or other types of feathers that are larger, because typically our birds were very tiny, like finches and sparrows, so the feathers are tiny. Now we use things like rooster and chicken and peacock and pheasant. So the feathers are much larger, so we have to cut them shorter to make them the size or similar to the size that we use traditionally. And whenever my haumana, whenever my students complain about the prep, kumu, we have to cut all of these. Yes, but think about it. If we were in Vakahiko, if we were back in the days of the past, could you see yourself going up into the kuahivi? Could you see yourself going up into the forest, placing sap on a branch where the manu would land to feed? And once they did, pluck only maybe 10 feathers from the bird. And then you clean the feet with kukui oil, let the bird go, wait for the next one to land. Which would you rather do? Yeah. Then they don't complain so much anymore. But so now we use individual feathers, whereas with our traditional bird feathers, because they were so tiny, we had to make uo or bundle them. So even more prep work, yeah. And then they don't say a word again. But anyhow, so because we work with larger feathers, we can change the placement of the feather. We can lay them flat, moi. Yeah, we can turn them so that the feathers, as people say, make it fluffy. Yeah, so the feather sticks points outward, poi poi. We can do a combination of both, kamoi and poi poi. So with some of the lei, or with all of the lei that I brought, I've depicted all of those styles. So you can see when it's moi, when it's laying down, when it's poi poi, when it's out, or a combination of both. And with every tie that you do, you put all of your good thoughts, all of your aloha, all of your good feelings into it. And I've taught an oli to my students, and it's an oli that was given to me by a very, very dear friend. And it goes like this. Nani ka lei hulu manu, I ka luna o ka wa'a, I holuna pe I ka malanai, I kia I o ka wa'a, e ho mai ke ola pono, e ho mai ke ola loa, e ho mai ka ho'o hano hano, e ho mai ka no e au, me ke aloha. And we encourage our Hawana to sing this as they're working, because it's beautifying, it's giving compliment to the feathers, it's asking to give you knowledge, it's asking to give you aloha, to give you the good positive feelings that you need to go in. I always tell my Hamana, if you're having a bad day, if you're not feeling well health-wise, don't touch it. Yeah? And I think many of you understand that. Because whatever you're feeling, whatever your ano is, it goes into your work. So don't touch. But so we have lei that are in there. I also have, Ruha mentioned a piece that I finished here. And it's the more contemporary style of lei. It's called humu papa, or hat band. Yeah. People come to me, oh, do you have any hat bands? Yes, I have humu papa. You always teach, yeah? You always teach. So humu papa is stitching or sewing the feathers to a flat base. And so this style was actually, like I said, it's a more contemporary style. It was created by our paniolo, our cowboy, because on the ranches they had birds, they had pheasants, they had all kinds. And of course, after you eat the meat, you're not going to poho, you're not going to waste the rest of it. So we have to do something with the feathers. So, to beautify themselves when they would go out holo holo with their wahine, they beautified their papale by making humu papa. Because prior to foreign arrival, we didn't have needles and things, right? And of the style of lei that we do, humu papa is it's a little more time consuming than the vili, I feel, and I think majority of my haumana will agree with that. But with everything else, we put a lot of aloha. So it was quite an honor to be able to finish it here, and to be able to share it with those who were able to come in and see what we were doing. But anyhow, so those are the lei. And then I also have an ahu'ula. An ahu'ula is a cape. And capes, with all featherwork, featherwork was only adorned by or worn by ali'i. So those of a chiefly status, rulers, kings, queens, chiefs, chiefesses, such. Also for scholars, kahuna, and such. And again, it was because of the feathers being sacred. Yeah, no one else was allowed to wear them. And ahu'ula were often worn by our ali'i, but also by our koa, our warriors, when they went into battle. There was never, ever a duplication of pattern, style. It was all very unique because the ahu was made specifically for a person, and it told of their mo'okuauhau, it told of their genealogy, it told of where they came from. So the colors and the designs were very specific. But in my ahu, it's very simple because my entire exhibit is to honor Hina, the goddess of the moon and femininity. So the colors in all of my pieces were to depict different aspects of Hina. So in the ahu, it's natural, browns and gray and white and beige, but it's really for the duality of Hina that I chose those colors. And then around the neckline is pure white, just pure white goose, and in the shape of a crescent. If we were able to actually have the ahu flat up against the wall so you could see the design, it's much more evident. But then the neckline of the ahu, I did in a style of poi poi, a vili poi poi, which is a little bit of artistic, what you call it? Yes, that I took upon myself because ahu were never made with a neckline like that. So I just took that liberty to add a little bit more femininity for Hina. But again, with doing an ahu though, like was done with our leivili, you have to uo, you have to bundle your feathers together. So in there, all the feathers that you see that look like individual feathers, those are all bundles of 3. Yeah. So the time to take and bundle every single one and then to tie them onto the backing, it was quite a wonderful experience. And one day I hope all my haumana will have a chance to learn how to do that. Auntie Lee is working on her second ahu'ula right now, actually. And so you can go ask her questions too. Anyhow, and then I have kahili. Kahili are probably amongst amongst all of our hulu or our hana hulu, the most prestigious. Kahili feather standards stand with the kahili in a cylindrical shape or the hulu in a cylindrical shape at the top. Traditionally, our kahili stood at least 30 feet tall or taller at times, so that from a distance you could see that there was ali'i and you knew exactly who it was that was coming, which was very beneficial for us, because sometimes there may have been an ali'i coming who was of such a high rank, that was of such a high bloodline, that you couldn't look upon them. So you'd be prepared and go hide if they were coming in your direction, or have to, if you weren't able to hide, you would know to lay yourself flat on the ground with your face to the ground so you don't see them. Otherwise, it could be detrimental to your life. Yeah. Anyway, so in today's time, we don't make them that large. About 14 to 15 feet is the tallest that we will make. And that's basically because kahili will go inside a room, and it's rare to find ceilings that are that tall, right? But anyhow, so I have 3 kahili ku, and all of them again in honor of Hina, using primarily natural feathers. But when we do kahili, it's not just an individual work like the rest, like all of the lei and the ahu and such. That's individual work. When we do kahili, that's an army. Many hands go into putting together all the hulu, because what we put on there, it's large bundles of feathers. And in today's time, we make use of modern pieces, modern things. We're not using traditional, whether it's be new, coconut, or it's ie, which is a vine, or it's olona, mainly because to cultivate them, some of them, especially with ie and olona, they're not always readily available. So we turn to craft stores and things like that to get floral picks with wire. But I always say, if our kupuna had access to the things that we have today, they'd work smarter and not harder, I believe, anyway. Anyhow, so to tie individual feathers or to wrap individual feathers onto each pick, and then for those picks to be tied onto branches, and then the branches to be installed into the kua, into the pole. Many, many hands. And so I mahalo not only my husband and Auntie Lee who came with me, but I mahalo my haumana who happily came to Kokua. I even had two haumana that came from Los Angeles to Kokua. They wanted to be a part of it. And if they had their way, they'd be here right now. But anyhow, so I just wanted to share that it was my tutu's heart to make sure that this continues, that this work continues. People would oftentimes ask her, isn't it true that featherwork is a dying art? And my tutu would give them that look, She says, not as long as I can help it. And so I've taken on that, for sure. Because, I want to sleep at night. I don't want my tutu come. So, anybody who walks in the door, anybody who wants to learn, I welcome that. That's the primary thing that I do is I teach. And I get the greatest joy out of teaching, especially when they light up because they got it. Even after I told them a million times, take it out, take it out, take it out, take it out. Hana ho, let's try again. Hana ho, let's try again. And all the tears and the crying and the frustration, and then bing, the light goes on. That's really unexplainable. It's hard to explain that feeling. But many of you, I'm sure, know that feeling because of what you do and you teaching others to do the same. So, this legacy that I take with me, this kuleana that I have, it's an honor, a great, great, great honor and a privilege to be able to do so.